Welcome into the Fade. I'm the greatest gambler who's ever lived, Clay Travis. She's Kelly Stewart, better looking than me, but nowhere near as good of a gambler. And we are here for another season of, like I said, the Fade. It's the opening Thursday of college football, unless you count week 0, which, oh, by the way, I won on Georgia Tech. Kelly was on Florida State. Not to rub it in or anything, but I was right. She was wrong. And we are ready to roll through so many different games for all of you. We'll try to be on Thursday for both NFL and college football action this year, but sometimes there'll be different days. Like next week, I'm going to be on the road. We're taping it on Tuesday, so just kind of keep your head on a swivel. They'll also be clipping and sharing different elements from this. Kelly, are you as excited as I am for the kickoff of week 1 of college football?
I am exhausted. It is week 1 and I am already burnt out. I have spent so much time. Last week I was on FSU and the biggest mush that I've ever met in my life was also on them. So right out of the gate, touchdown, go for 2, feeling really good. And that was all she wrote. Georgia Tech absolutely dominated. So congrats to you, Clay. That was the only bet I had this week. I'm keeping it light. It's week 1. These lines have been out for a very long time. And I saw from your OutKick article, you are not keeping it light.
No, I like to go big on week 1 because I think there's a lot of psychology. I think coaches matter more in week 1 than they do other weeks because I think they can overthink it and overanalyze and over-narrative whatever the outcome of week 1 is in a way that once they get into the grind, they can't. Tonight, I would say, do you have any Thursday night picks at all?
So I actually don't, but I was listening to your other show, and I do have to agree with you here. I want to bet North Dakota State so bad. Like, I just feel it in my plums that I want to type it in and bet it. My problem is, ever since Chris Kleiman left North Dakota State, they have not been the football powerhouse they once were. Does that mean that Colorado is going to win by 10? Absolutely not. Did they magically find a way to play defense in the last 9 months? I highly doubt it. I just don't like the way that Colorado is getting so much love once again in the marketplace, and I would love to fade that trend. So instead of playing tonight, I'm just going to take the under season wins for Colorado.
What is the over-under for season wins for Colorado? 5? 5.5?
Yeah, 5.5. It depends on where you like to shop. Laid some juice with the under 5.5. I got this team winning 4 games, Clay. So,
by the way, did you say you fill it in your plums? Thumbs. Oh, okay. I was like, what in the world is a plum? I've never heard that phrase before. All right, here we go. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to pass for more than 304.5 yards. That's the prop bet. So I'm on that tonight. Otherwise, I'm kind of disappointed, honestly. I love college football that we have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 straight days of games. I think college football does that really well. But the Georgia Tech-Florida State game is infinitely better than anything that is on the schedule for this opening Thursday night. I actually think, by and large, Thursday night tonight is a big whiff. There should be at least one kind of focused signature game between 2 power conference teams, just like we have Georgia Tech, Florida State from Ireland. I'm a little bit disappointed in the way that this is set up in general, just FYI. All right, I'm going to start running through my picks. Let's start with what I think are the 5 best, biggest games, all right? You tell me if you think that there's another game that should be in the mix here. Clemson, Georgia, Penn State, West Virginia, Notre Dame, A&M, LSU, and Southern Cal, and I would argue Miami, Florida are clearly the 5 best games. And I understand that gamblers don't like to do this, but I generally want to, like professional gamblers, regular gamblers like me like to do it. I like to bet the most popular games. Would you agree with me in general that just objectively looking at the slate, those are the 5 best games? If you were only caring as a fan, that those are the 5 best games coming Saturday?
Absolutely, from a fan perspective, and then the USC game on Sunday. As you mentioned, the horrible timing. There should be an awesome standalone game tonight. Remember a few years ago, it was like Minnesota, Ohio State. The line was fluctuating between 14, 13.5. Right before kick went 14.5. I said, fine, give me the Gophers. And it was an epic sweat, Clay. The fact that we have to watch Minnesota, North Carolina tonight, is just an absolute utter travesty. I will be watching North Dakota State, Colorado instead. Maybe even flipping back and forth to see if KU can cover the 51 or whatever it is versus some school I had never even heard of until I saw it on their schedule.
All right, here are the picks. So I'm going to start with those 5. I like Clemson plus the points against Georgia. I think that Georgia and Carson Beck are going to miss Brock Bowers more than anybody's talking about. He was the security blanket. He was the safety on third down, the guy that Beck had complete and total confidence in. I think they're going to miss him. I like Penn State minus the points and the over at West Virginia. I know you've got some thoughts on that one, I bet. I like Florida to win outright as a 2.5-point underdog. By the way, these are Monday's numbers when I made my bets that I wrote down and published on OutKick. So if they've moved, that's the reason why I'm referencing these numbers. Florida plus 2.5. I like A&M. My blood bank guarantee, A&M is going to beat Notre Dame by 7 or more. I also like the under 46.5. And then I like LSU minus 4.5 against Southern Cal and the over 63.5. That's the 5 big games. That's my breakdown. Are you betting any of those 5 games?
So I am. I'll say this about Clemson. Last time these two met was an absolute snooze fest. I don't even know if I got through the game. Remember, they didn't even score an offensive touchdown. I hope it's a better game for a viewership standpoint. I want to take the points here with Clemson. We know what Dabo Swinney is going through right now. He's getting so much just negativity from the press in regards to the transfer portal and trying to do the old school thing. Georgia can't stay out of the news themselves, if you know what I mean. Carson Beck talking about making a Heisman run already. Look, a lot of people have that FSU throttling in the back of their mind. I am this close, Clay, to taking Clemson plus 13.5. I am on the Gators with you. At this point, 2.5. Just take the money line. Bottom line, Billy Napier, they keep talking about how hot his seat is. I think Graham Mertz in his second year is going to have this offense running just a little bit better in the swamp. And I'm sorry, you do not lay points with Mario Cristobal. We are opposite, though, on West Virginia. And I am this is probably the game that I was too late on, opened 11. Now it's down to 8, even starting to see 7.5. And 2, now it starts to wonder if I'm going to get James Franklin. And that means you know what he does. There's any time left on the clock and he has an opportunity to score. You're in trouble. But I do think over a touchdown, College Game Day is going to be there. Morgantown, one of my favorite places to watch a game, is going to be absolutely awesome. No big opinion on the A&M Notre Dame pick. I'm going to be really honest with you. A&M has been on a coaching carousel. They're like the Chicago Bears of Texas these days. They get all the hype every single year. They get a new coach. They get a quarterback. They get a new offensive coordinator. And guess what? It never amounts to anything. So I am not laying my hard-earned money on A&M until I see otherwise. And I am on USC against you. I think that Lincoln Riley is going to be able to reload here with Miller. Everybody talking about Caleb Williams going to the NFL. Did we forget Jaden Daniels is the only reason why LSU was above a 500 team last year? That kid was absolutely electric. Now the quarterback for the Commanders. And I just think on a neutral field, catching 4.5, USC is going to keep it real close. I hope they found some semblance of a defense in the last 9 months, unlike Colorado.
No, look, I've been hearing for 6 years now that Lincoln Riley figured out his defensive issues, and they never materialized. They still give up way too many points. Doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. For whatever reason, the culture that he recruits and the offensive style that he plays doesn't seem to manifest with a remotely decent defense. The reason, by the way, that I love A&M in this game is Mike Elko coached Riley Leonard last year. He was at Duke. He managed to shut down Marcus Freeman and that offense with Sam Hartman, by and large. I know that Notre Dame came back late to win it. I love College Station. You were talking about Morgantown and how crazy it's going to be. A night kickoff in College Station is going to be an electric atmosphere. Also, Jimbo Fisher recruited really, really well at Texas A&M. And so I know that they didn't have the success that they wanted or needed given what they were playing Jimbo Fisher, but I think Mike Elko will take the air out of this game. I like the under. I am very confident that A&M is going to win this game, something like 20-13. So those are the big five. What do you like the most on the ticket, on the slate? What are your favorite bets for this upcoming weekend?
So I have two games that nobody wanted to watch, but of course, Clay, I wouldn't have it any other way. You mentioned that professional gamblers like to kind of sift through and find some diamonds in the rough. So I found one for Friday night. Florida Atlantic catching 2 touchdowns in East Lansing. Obviously, we all know everything that happened with Mel Tucker. There's still a little stink there, even though Jonathan Smith has come in. And I want to say this, Jonathan Smith, thank you for all of those wins in Corvallis as an outright underdog, or even at the Coliseum there a couple of years ago. I do appreciate you. But when you're asking teams to go from an underdog to now a favorite, especially in a coaching standpoint, I don't think he's quite prepared for this role. On the flip side, you got Tom Herman, who was in Austin, got ran out of town, and now is one of the best underdogs, especially catching double digits there for the Owls. 7-1 against the spread. I love this team. If you remember a couple of years ago, they almost sprung the outright upset on Illinois for me. But I think a lot of people are thinking, no way is FAU going to win this game. I do think it's worth a sprinkle. Ultimately, I do think that the Spartans defense will win this game for them. We know that they are returning quite a few guys on that side of the ball, but this offense is so abysmal. And you want me to think that they're going to beat somebody by 2 touchdowns? I'm going to say it's not going to happen. So give me FAU plus 14. And then another game that nobody cares about. We're going to take Wyoming. Yeah, I know, Wyoming. Just what we wanted to do was take a touchdown with a team going to Sun Devil Stadium. Dillingham's second year in Scottsdale. He's got a transfer quarterback from Michigan State. I don't care. This team's their first year in the Big 12. This is a step up in class, and I don't think they're ready for it. They're not looking at this Wyoming team coming to town because they have Mississippi State on deck. Who does Wyoming have? Well, we know Craig Bull's out. Jay Sawvell is in. That is their former defensive coordinator. He's got 13 starters returning to this team. They are missing their star running back, Harrison Whaley, which is why I think this line is going up. But I don't think it matters. I think this team can still get the W without him. We know running backs tend to be plug and play. And again, you're going to lay 7 points with the Arizona Sun Devils, who are 15-10 since 2019 as home chalk. Can't do it.
That's amazing breakdowns on both those games. I did not bet them. Here are the remaining of my games, Kelly. I'm curious if you're on either side. And a lot of these are psychology plays in that I buy into the impact that college coaches have. Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. I'm taking Vanderbilt plus the nearly 2 touchdowns, 13.5, and the under. Clark Lee is on the hot seat. He is Vanderbilt's head coach. When coaches are on the hot seat, to me, they go back to whatever they do the best. Clark Lee is a really good defensive coordinator. He had things rolling at Notre Dame. It's why he got the Vanderbilt job. He's taking back over the defense. I think that he takes the air out of this game, brings the game into a, sort of the proverbial knife fight, and Vanderbilt keeps this close. I like that, and the under. Tennessee, Chattanooga. Nico is making his debut. A lot of people are going to focus on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's a challenge with a mismatch line at 38.5. I actually think Tennessee's defense, especially the front seven, is going to be really, really good. The best that Josh Heupel has had. I don't think Chattanooga is going to score maybe a touchdown at all. I like Tennessee to win, even if they don't score more than, 45 or 50. I think they're going to keep this number low. I got Tennessee. Colorado State at Texas. Colorado State, I don't know if they impressed you last year, but I watched them play quite a bit. On the offensive side of the ball, they're pretty good. They should have beaten Colorado early last year. They're I got them at 33.5. It's still over 30-point underdog against Texas. Texas is going to have a lot of massive games first year in the SEC. I just don't think they're going to be all in on that game. Old Dominion has tended to be pretty good against power conference opponents. Early in the season, South Carolina's breaking in a new quarterback. I don't think the Gamecocks are that talented. I got ODU at a plus 21. Bama, minus 30.5, Kelly. This is Kalen DeBoer's Open. Usually in a game like this, I wouldn't focus on it. I think the narrative of how he performs in his first game without Saban is huge. I think that they want to blow Western Kentucky out in a way that would typically not be an incentive structure. And then Kentucky putting in a new offensive system. You got Mark Stoops, who is a defensive coach by and large. They are 28-point favorites roughly over Southern Miss. I think that number is too big. So I'm taking a lot of big underdogs by and large through that stretch. Anything that jumps out to you, are you betting any of these games?
So I did bet Colorado State. I bet it a long time ago, 35.5 back in July. And that was a play against Texas, playing Michigan on deck. The problem is I didn't do the inverse. And now I'm really kicking myself for not taking Fresno State when you could have gotten well over 3 touchdowns. Now Fresno State's getting some money. So I'm going to keep an eye on Fresno State. We'll see if it gets back over that 3 touchdowns. Both of these teams, when you're looking at these powerhouse type schools, and I don't necessarily mean because Michigan won a national championship and Texas hasn't even won the Big 12 for almost a decade. That being said, they tend to overlook these smaller schools. I love what Jay Norvell has done there in Fort Collins with this Colorado State team. I have them circled versus Colorado coming up here in a couple of weeks as well. So yes, the points with Colorado State. The unfortunate part is it has come down so much. It's really hard for me to recommend. And then Fresno State is going to be circled here. Like what takes on Harbaugh running out of town. We've got the new documentary out on Connor Scallions. I mean, do you think that is going to affect this team this season?
I think it's more likely to be what you said, which is everybody I'm around is already talking about how big the Texas-Michigan game is going to be. It's Fox's big noon game. My wife's a Michigan grad. We've been talking about making sure that we're there. Our schedules are kind of a zoo. I liked going with Colorado State because I'm have more confidence in them than I do Michigan. But I don't think it's crazy to think there could be a hangover from the national championship. Certainly the overall quality of talent on Michigan's team is substantially down compared to what they had last year. Harbaugh had a major impact in terms of getting them ready. I don't think it's a bad parlay to jump on Colorado State and Fresno State in the, sort of early season trap game. The one challenge is guys bust their asses, so hard in the off season and during training camp, basically to get ready for week 1, that usually you don't have them flat in week 1. I just think Colorado State is underrated in terms of the overall talent they have. I think they can score. And I also think the other thing to factor in here is if I'm Texas or I'm Michigan, I want to get my starters out after we get them some reps. I don't want to get somebody injured before one of the biggest games of the year either, which could lead to a backdoor cover opportunity when you're playing some second or third string guys late in the fourth quarter in this game. So I think that could apply for a lot of these games. I took a lot of big underdogs in week 1, but that kind of ties into me.
Yeah, listen to this. One thing I was looking for while you're speaking, Michigan 0-3 against the spread in these big guaranteed payout games. By the way, they're paying $1.85 million guaranteed to Fresno State to come to the Big House and lose. But they also didn't cover versus ECU, UNLV, or Bowling Green last season in that same role. So keep in mind, it doesn't really matter when you have a big name like Michigan or Texas or Georgia on your chest, Alabama, if you will. Some of these smaller schools don't matter. And as you mentioned, also the injury factor. I'll never forget Nick Saban doing that for me. I was catching 55 and he took a knee when he could have punched it in. That's a real true American hero right there of a head coach.
That's the opposite to what James Franklin would do. All right, the fade.
Yeah, he's going to do that to me. I know that now that I put that in the universe.
Anything else you think people should know for week 1 college football action?
Actually, I've got a contest I wanted to promote really quick, Clay. If you are into college football, that's why I created it, right? All these national giant NFL pools, contests, if you will. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to do a college football survivor. Obviously, there are several plays here. There's double pick weeks, but it's going to be really interesting. $100 to enter, splashsports.com/Kelly in Vegas. Those guys and I've been partnering, doing a lot of really fun stuff. Yes, you can play in Tennessee, Clay. So I expect to see your name on that leaderboard. And I can't get out of here without cornering you for a fantasy football side bet. We have a draft on Monday night at 5 p.m. Eastern. Do not be late. Do not auto draft.
Is
Do
it
not
5
blame it
p.m.
on your
Eastern?
children.
I thought it was 5 p.m. Central. To be fair with Kelly, she had to get me signed into my fantasy football team because somehow I have multiple accounts registered at CBS Sports, and I have no idea how it happened. So I am registered. Here's the challenge. I am going to be flying to Washington, D.C. during part of our draft. So I am reliant on Wi-Fi being in place in order to be able to draft my flawlessly talented team. So this is vintage. So it's 4 o'clock Central Time. Our draft starts.
Now you've got me second guessing, Clay. At this point in time, I will text you after the show. But you're not getting out of here without a side bet. You're not getting out of here without a side bet.
Let me first criticize. I don't know why we're drafting on Labor Day. Like, I'm going to be out with my kids at the beach all day. And like everybody's busy on like why would you draft on a holiday? Like what?
You know whose fault this is? Todd Furman.
Why? I mean,
did you
doesn't have kids.
Else
he doesn't have a life. We should do it on the Tuesday night after the Labor Day holiday. You still have a couple of days before kickoff. Like, I don't know why everyone on the planet doesn't do their fantasy football draft on the Tuesday before the Thursday. It should be like a national holiday. It's after the holiday. You're at home at night. Everybody's good to go. Anyway, what do you want to bet?
We got to have a fun side bet, Clay. I don't have anything in mind. I was hoping you wanted to do, I don't know. We got to have something.
You thought that I was going to come up with a side bet?
Listen,
we will
I
come up with a side bet between now and Tuesday. We'll do it between now and Tuesday when we do the next fade. We'll come up with a side bet. That's presuming that I remember to show up and actually am able to log in and participate in the draft, which drives everybody else crazy because we have a big money fantasy football league, and I might be a bit haphazard in my regular association with the league, meaning that I'm not great about responding all the time.
Clay, we love you. You know, I wouldn't have it any other way. What are we going to do? Replace you with another guy who behaves the exact same?
Probably, but that person you probably would not get as much EV value on because they're probably going to pay more attention to the league and will remember to set their team every week, which I don't always do. All right, the fade, it's back. We will be not live. We'll be taping Tuesday. So it'll be a little bit early next week, but the general idea is to try to do it Thursday when you got the NFL and college football games kicking off. Kelly, fantastic. You can follow her at Kelly. Is it at Kelly in Vegas? Is still your Twitter handle, right?
Yes, sir.
I believe. And you can participate in her knockout challenge there, Survivor Challenge. And we will be back next week, hopefully with a lot of winners that I have given you. 15 picks. Let's get it done. This has been The Fade. I'm Clay Travis. She's Kelly Stewart, a.k.a. Kelly in Vegas, and we will see you next week.